Part question. Are you aware that Mayor Bottoms says that business owners asked her for a mask mandate for their safety? And then also in the executive order, well, the lawsuit rather, it says that municipalities are not abiding by the executive order, which limits social gatherings to 50 people. But then it also calls for bars and clubs to be open. So asking you, who was to enforce that 50-person limit in a place where, like a bar or a club, where it's counterintuitive to social distance? Who's responsible for that, especially in a city like Atlanta?
Well, any post-certified officer in the state of Georgia has the authority to do that. Police department, sheriff's department, all the state officers, we've done that early on. You know, we've actually responded to calls early on about restaurants when we first started back open that didn't adhere to the social distancing rules, and we sent the state patrol out there. We've worked with local officials on those kind of things too, when we had some churches that were opening early on that weren't following the guideline. And you know, nobody wants to do all that. We want people to comply with the orders. But you know, the mayor can instruct the police department. If she thinks there's a problem in bars in Atlanta, our bars are under a 35% occupancy capacity. We haven't moved that since we opened it. And the reason we have that policy is because we believe that with that occupancy level and the other regulations we have for bars and restaurants too, that people can socially distance and they can be smart about doing those things. Now, does it make sense to go to outdoor bar if you can? It does to me. But we also know that, you know, we've had 400 and 500 people in the middle of streets in downtown Atlanta with people doing donuts with cars, and that's way over the 50-person gathering ban, and nobody bothered to respond to that.
Is there consideration?
So I think we've got to be consistent about what we're doing. I mean, we're willing to continue to work with the locals on enforcement and to help them, and I would ask them to do that. And I don't think it's going to be as hard as some of them think they will. But we've had local law enforcement that's actually said we don't have enough manpower to enforce a mask mandate. And I don't think we need to do that, in my opinion. I know people disagree with me on that, and that's fine. But we all know the current regulations that we've had for months have worked. So if we get people to enforce those, and you know, as Colonel Val and Lieutenant Colonel Wright and others from the State Patrol, DNR, working our beaches and state parks, we didn't have to write many citations. We wrote several, and we closed a few businesses down because they didn't listen to us and just were being combative. But most people just wanted to make sure they knew how to follow the rules, and they did that. We need to double down on that because it's worked before and it'll work again.